All right, hello, welcome to the show. Yeah, we're here today, like every what do we call it? Every weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We are here at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today is Sunday, the 27th, and we are working on concept to conception, basically the entire process of writing a story in real time. And, obviously you're here to see behind the curtain, and I'm going to show you behind the curtain, but I'm also going to tell you what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, etc. etc. All right, so let's get into it. Today is the 29th episode of the series, which means ultimately we've been doing an hour every Sunday, and then of course we do an hour of questions and conversation. All right, so here's the thing. That's 29 hours we've been doing this. And some people go, how long does it take to write and create a book? And, honestly, if you just consistently work on it an hour a week, you get to where we are, which is we're literally, let me show you the screen. Let me get into the nitty gritty of it all. We have done extensive brainstorming. We have done character arcs. We created the short form outline, which, by the way, is a lot of fun. And then we extended that outline to make sense. And then we did this by adding like character arcs and other elements that help make sense of the narrative. Now we're on the zero draft, and you're saying, Thomas, 29 hours of work on this, and you're up to the zero draft? And I go, yes, we are. Whoop. I hit the keyboard. So in that situation, what does that even mean? Zero drafts are where we beat out the chapters. We learn what needs to be in that chapter, the pacing in that chapter, if that chapter should be broken up into more than one chapter, etc., etc. With that said, we are on chapter 10. If you don't understand what that is, we've been working with the 27 plot point outline, so that means we are in the second act. So we've been killing it, and it just goes to show you don't always need forever. If you have a busy schedule, it might take you a year or two to get a book done if you have a busy schedule and you work on it once a week or whatever the case is, but still you can get a lot done. A lot can happen in 29 hours. You should do more of those sprints. It was pretty helpful yesterday. Helpful in the sense of it got you motivated and got you convinced you to write a little bit that day, or sprint because we were just having a lot of fun. I'd really love to know your thoughts. I hope this Tommy Tippy isn't 45 minutes long. It might be. You never know. Tommy Tippy won. The first. Well, I try to do the sprint at least once a month. It's just sometimes I don't know. Maybe I will get to doing a little bit more. Maybe we'll see what happens. We'll see what goes on. But right now, I'm trying to keep it a little diverse and mixed up and do a little bit here and there. It wasn't. Oh, the ad. Yeah, yesterday I didn't put on the monetization on the live video, so today you probably serve an ad when you're coming into it. But let's get into it. So we are on Act 2, Chapter 10, which is plot point 10 in this situation. Now, just for anyone who's listening, watching for the first time, basically what I'm trying to give myself some restrictions, though remember, you can always break the rules, and you should really be doing what you can to make the narrative the strongest it possibly can. So even though I was starting with some restrictions, which the first one being I wanted to write a chapter per plot point. So ultimately the book would be 27 chapters. My goal was to make them no more than 3,000 words, or at least to average that, so we could have 81,000 word book. But what we're finding out is we've at least at minimum did 2 chapters where we had to kind of grow it a little bit, which I think, which one was it? We definitely had to, we had to do 7. Oh, all right. So no, all right. Chapter 7 is the only one we had to double up. So right now, chapter 7 is the only one where we had to explore the information a little bit more, and that's okay. That's the point of this experiment. That's this point of turning back the curtain. Is that sometimes what we planned out doesn't always work out, and it's okay to adjust and change it up. Now, I will say this much: the goal, my friends, the goal was to do a chapter per plot point. But as you can see, sometimes you could write more than one chapter within a plot point. And right now we are on chapter 10. And if you don't know, we're going to be discovering, or I should say, exploring. We're introducing the protagonist and ultimately the reader and the audience to the new world. So the Act 1 ends with Laura Olivia being arrested. Olivia. And now Act 2 starts us off in the prison. So we get to learn about the prison. After last night's sprint and after a long hiatus, I'm at 1,500 words this morning. Congratulations, Em. Everybody give Em a big woohoo! That's fantastic. That's great work. 1,500 words. That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Nice. Nice. I will say this, though. Let me add a little caveat for you, Em. Yay! Don't allow that to feel like it's your standard. You know, if tomorrow you write again and you do only 1,000 words or 700 words or even 500 words, remember you still wrote. You still got words down. It's amazing, awesome. That's an accomplishment to get 1,500 words. But as writers, we have to remind ourselves it's not about getting the 1,500 words every single day. But when you do get one of those days, that is a miraculous success, and it's definitely something to celebrate. I recommend having a slice of pizza, if I may say so myself. But if you do a 500 word day, that is also very good, very successful. So keep yourself excited. 320 seems to be a number of the week. 320. That's still a great number. I'll be honest, even if you did 100 words, at least you wrote something. You got something out. But, we do have to celebrate those big victories. There's a guy on YouTube I watched talking about 15,000 words a day. Yeah, that guy's on crack. 15,000 words? That means they are writing all day. It takes me 2 hours, right, of a focused 2 hours to basically write 3,000 words in a day. And that's for nonfiction. For fiction, I could probably do about 1,500 in 2 hours, right? So that would mean, let's say that's 20 hours of work I would have to do to get the equivalent of 15,000. That's insane. That's I'm gonna call shenanigans, unless of course the person says, "Hey, I wrote for an hour, took a 30-minute break, wrote for another hour," and they basically did that, and that's possible. But that means that they didn't they didn't go to bed. He will be in a heap drooling for this next. I know, right? He's like, "Oh man, I gotta do another 15,000 words," Let's get into it. We got to the second NaNoWriMo. Yeah, but did he do it for the entirety of NaNoWriMo? Oh, you're saying he did it in a day, right? Yeah, I don't care if it's for NaNoWriMo or whatever. That's still crazy. All right. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying we just need to know how many hours he did it for, Some people are like, but again, this is the other thing. Like I just said, I could write 1,500 to 3,000 words in a 2-hour session, right? Even if I broke it up, like if I did an hour, then took a break and then another hour, which I recommend if you're going to do that. At the same time, those are not polished words. Like they're not polished phrases, prose, or sentences. It's just getting it out. And in that case, it's all right to get out what I would almost call slop, but it could also be quality slop. But because you got to start somewhere. But at the same time, the real work. That's what I don't understand. Like how much work did you put into editing? And people, it's a different thing. Like writing your word count for the day, saying 15,000 words. Like, what if it ends up the words are just blah 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 blah, blah, like we want some details to that. Anyway, sorry, my autism. Okay, so they lock up. Oh, by the way, if anyone's catching this for the first time, remember, zero drafts are not prose. We're not writing pretty language. It is just us taking the outlining structure, the broad general statements, and creating just a movement in behavior, and then later on it turns into something else. Appreciate the support there, guys, and in the past, Thomas, I've been overjoyed to squeeze a sentence out. That's the mentality right there. Getting a sentence out, and you're just like, this is good. All right, so they lock her up. All right. Okay, they lock her up. Now, by the way, this one sentence, so they lock her up, right? So they lock up Laura Olivia. By the way, if I seem a little out of it today, I got a little, my lungs and my neck are not doing very well today. I'm having a bad day. You could probably see it in my eyes, like I look like, bleh. And I don't have any soda, so I didn't get any. So I'm probably also doing the caffeine withdrawal. But it's 15,000 a day after a month. Has fingers will be worn down to nubs. So I wrote 15,000 words every day. All right. So where was I? Oh yeah. So this one sentence, by the way, would become a beat that has to play out in prose, and that prose could end up being 3 paragraphs if I wanted to, right? Or 3 passages. So just because in the zero draft it says, so they lock up, Laura Olivia, obviously this is a more casual, active would be they or the authorities. Though, like, you have to spell it right. The authorities locked up Laura. However, we're doing it in first person, so it would be, they lock Laura up, right? But at the same time, actually would do that. This would turn into like an extended prose. We'd probably see how they lock her up, how she's emotionally reacting to it in that moment. There might be dialogue. There might be resistance. We'd probably explore what she's, noticing around her within the cell area. And that all comes from one sentence. Because remember, the zero draft is just working out what the rhythm of the scene beats might look like. And of course, I could go deeper into it. I could say, take note of the people in other cells, right? The roughness of the environment, and the guards are being rude and restrictive. Okay, restrictive might sound a little bit abstract, but what we got here? That was how my setup became as long as a chapter. It looked small in the outline. That's the thing, and just embrace that, because remember, it's towards the end of the writing process when you start getting into the bigger and greater drafts where you start saying, all right, I got to cut and clean up where I have to. Though again, if you're self-publishing, really, who's to say it's too many words? As long as there's no fluff, that's really the secret. Cut out the fluff. But yeah, allow yourself to embrace the expansion, and when you're working on your outline, sometimes it's going to be something as simple as the authorities lock. I'm so sorry. I'm like I'm so in pain that I'm just like exhausted from it. Something as simple as a quick sentence could turn into a full chapter. Like, that's just the reality of it. And sometimes you got to embrace that and see where it goes. Hi, been up at my mother's grandmother's house for a week today. My mother is at. Hey, congratulations, Hannah Hart, on the homecoming of the Madre. It's always good to see Madre at mi casa, or tu casa. Congratulations. I'm glad she's home. I'm glad she's safe and around loved ones. That's important. So yeah, but by the way, like, to Flower's point, where she's saying, it turned into a full chapter. Like technically, Laura is nervous in her cell with her cellmate, and then dinner is called, and she's brought to the cafeteria. Laura doesn't know what to do. Like that could be its own chapter technically. It really, but it comes down to how you want to pace it out. Do I want to explore this in my like greater detail? Do we want to see her moving through the tunnel, or whatever the prison, interacting with all the guards and being pushed around and then thrown into this? Like that could be a chapter, and that might be 1,000 words, and so be it. It's really up to you. And that's something we're going to discover when we get to the first draft, because even though the zero draft is helping us beat out the chapters and ultimately saying to ourselves this might be more than one chapter, in the first draft we might learn that we have to make another chapter, that we spent too much time. A really good example of this is in the second epic fantasy book of the series that I'm working on. Yes, I'm already starting to write multiple. The first chapter had a very specific goal. It was to have them do a thing, and then they would accomplish that thing, and then they would get out of the situation. Writing it, the first chapter is now the start of that to the middle. So it gets to the very end, and it has a full conclusion for a chapter. And I was like, I can't keep writing another scene for this. I can't add another scene to this. I can't keep this going. It has a conclusion at a beginning, a middle, and end, right? And it feels wrapped up. But the thing that is still happening is still happening. So I was able to break it up and turn it into a second chapter. And now the second chapter is going to now focus on the next important thing, which would be ultimately a character doing a very specific thing. So you have to pay attention to those things. Yeah, I could have made it a 6,000 word chapter. I could have. There's nothing stopping us as authors from doing that. But pacing wise, there's like this natural feel we get as writers when you do it a lot and you start like for example, looking at the screen, these things really help you understand when and where it feels like it's a little too much, right? And when you're writing a first draft, if you have that internal understanding of pace, the speed at which information is presented to the reader, you start recognizing things. Wait, this is a complete scene. There's a beginning, middle, and end. Characters are having a full arc through this. There was a task, there was a conflict, there was an accomplishment. If you keep going, that's when it becomes fatigue. But if you make a new chapter, it almost resets. In fact, I would say it does reset the reader to start anew. And that's an advantage of a chapter. Chapters should feel like a new beginning, middle, and end, even though it has the progression of it's doing something to push the narrative forward. What's a good amount of words for a chapter? That's a really great question, Afghani, and the answer is the right amount of words per chapter are the words that do everything it needs to do, which is you have to set up, have a conflict or problem, and resolve that while moving the narrative forward. If you can, we did and I really do. I believe you were watching the R.R. Martin video that we did. I think last week. Was it last week? Maybe it was the week before that. Where I basically broke down the chapter, and as you could see, it was like 300 words was enough to set up that scene, and then it was like whatever. I think it was like another 400 words or whatever to have the conflict, and then it was a really short, maybe 100 and something, 200 words for the resolution. That's the right amount of words for that chapter. It's not a specific number. Like, you shouldn't be writing your chapter going, I need 4,000 words or 2,000 words or 1,000 words. Because at the end of the day, you might be writing to that number and you're not necessarily writing at the purpose of the narrative. So as long as you set up enough context to challenge or create the problem and then resolve that issue while pushing it forward, okay, you got to push the narrative forward. Okay, that becomes the right amount of information. Now you have to also say to yourself, is there immersion? Is there enough immersion to make it feel realistic and alive and lived in? Or does it feel like a white room? Is there enough world building where it's not educational, but it is informative? And of course, is the plot being driven forward, both for character arcs and also for the narrative? If you can answer all those questions, even in 1,000 words, that's enough words for that chapter. But you're going to learn something very quickly when you write a chapter. You'll go back and you'll read it, and you'll be like, "Oh man, this is a tight 1,200 words." but I need immersion. So you're going to have to expand the chapter a little bit, right? The real secret to keeping your word count down, if you're like, I don't want to write I don't want it to be like this full book, is going through and going, what isn't necessary right now? What feels like an aside that I feel the audience needs to know, and it's like a thing that I want them to know right now. Because usually that could be moved to another chapter. Like if it's like Thomas sat at the mic talking to the audience doing his live about the concept of conception, a project that he started 29 weeks ago. Like that 29 weeks ago, that would be the first thing I cut. If I was like, I need to cut this down because it's an aside that could technically just be integrated into the story. In fact, the dialogue could just be as easy like what I did in the beginning. I go, wow, we are 29 sessions into this. That's 29 hours. And now what is it doing? When I explain that at the beginning of the episode, I'm actually being informative. I'm being plot driven. I know but Thomas, you're a real person. How is it a book? Because our lives are basically narratives, right? That we control. We are first person narrative controllers. But at the same time, I could have just said, hey, this is the next episode. We are, and then like have an aside, be like, we are 29 episodes in. But instead, it came part of the narrative or my agency, and then I drove the information naturally, which also led into the building of the system. The episode. So you can think of it that way to earn fluff, but fluff is usually, it feels like asides. It's usually description for description's sake or exposition dumps that aren't connected to the POV or emotional experiences and choices of characters. If you can make everything that you put on the page an emotional choice or experience through the characters, usually it'll be earned. But I hope that answers your question, because it is not a specific number that you're looking for. It is specific things are being accomplished. Setup, conflict problem, resolution, pushing the narrative forward, and then the immersion, world building, plot, etc., etc. She's up at her house, so I don't know how long I'm staying at her grandchildren's house. My mother can't lift anything for 6 months, and she's hooked up to tubes. Oof. My heart's with you and your mother. I know that could be pretty rough, especially if she's an independent, soul where she's just like, oh, I can't do anything. I need help. I know that bothered me when I was in that situation. You can't. Much love to your mother, and of course, health and harmony over there. Hooked up to her gallbladder, so I'm learning bus route to get downtown. Spone. Oh yeah, that's right. You're in Washington. Catch my eyes. All right. Now, Hannah Hart, just so you know, we feel for you. So, thank you for sharing something so intimate and so deeply personal. Appreciate it. Just know we're rooting for your mother, and we're hoping all the best for everybody over there. All right, let's keep this going. Let's keep it going. Doot. Uh-oh. Can you hear that? Can you hear the fire trucks? Fire trucks. It's a fire truck. You're a fire truck. All right, let's do this. Being rude to her and other prisoners. All right. The reason I want the guards to be rude to her and also other prisoners is so it doesn't show that they're just being rude to her. It's just that's the environment she's in. We didn't start the fire. It was always burning as the world was turning. Yeah, when I was in 5th grade, my teacher, Mr. Abrams, deep cut, he made us memorize that song, and then we studied it. And that was one of the first, actually, it's funny, that was the first class I realized I liked writing poetry and I liked writing, because he was very encouraging with it. But anyway, we had to break it down, and I thought it was so fascinating to realize that, because remember, it's 5th grade. How old are you at 5th grade? To realize that there's so much power in words, and that we have, because he would also do this experiment where basically what do you think it means, which turns into what is your perspective, right? And then what could it mean, which is deductive reasoning based on, certain things. And it was just like there was other things that we did for it, but it really made me love the power of words and subtext. That was important because that class led to poetry. And it was interesting because we all had to write something, and I wrote like a page worth of stuff, and it was basically free verse prose. And everyone was going up there, and everything was, roses are red, violets blue. Everything was like rhyming. Everything was like da 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 da. But it would be like, Tom sat in a chair, and that chair was at a fair. Like it was all like the last syllable was. But I read like these prose, and everybody was laughing at me in the class. They're like, "That doesn't rhyme. You're not making a rhyme at the end." Blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, I guess I misunderstood the assignment. And then Mr. Abrams was like, no, you're writing free verse prose because your sentences are moving the poetry. You're not, you're not using the pandemic barometer or anything, or not rhyming the last word. You're moving within. There's a cadence to your sentences, and that's a different form of poetry, and it's still valid and everything like that. And it was the first time somebody who wasn't my fourth grade teacher that said, "Hey, you can't spell, you shouldn't be a writer." But it was the first time I was encouraged to follow my artistic instincts. Anyway, that was an aside. That could have been cut. That was fluff. What don't I need right now? Actually, I don't think that was fluff. That was vulnerable. What don't I need right now? Never thought of it that way. I am a bit of a bloater when it comes to storytelling. Yeah, that's what don't I need right now. I was in the writing class I was doing last week because we were talking about word count. And that's the thing. Like right now, this chapter might not need that thing, but you can always seed and just build on things, little things, little things, little things. So really, it is a helper, and it does clean up your chapters. All right. What do we got? All right. Laura's nervous in her cell. Now, see, this is the thing. Dinner is called, and they end up to the cafeteria. This would mean... All right. This is what I'm going to do. So, by the way, you can do this. So, you see how this is the first scene of the chapter? Okay? And then we do a hard chapter break with this. And then there's, like, going to be this moment. And I think this moment is going to be, like, 500 to 600 words. Just because, again, this is the opening, right? And then you could do this soft chapter break I got here. So, with that, I'm actually going to start integrating that into this. Okay, we're going to build on this so I could have my, because, I like to keep, okay. Cafeteria, because I know I can't spell. It's okay if you can't spell, it's not about spelling. It's okay if you can't spell, because all great writers have great editors. 50. Thomas, what are you doing? I don't know. All right, let's see. All right, let's get into it. All right, now we're on a third scene. And by the way, you're allowed to do that. I enjoy some good free verse. If you do, pretty much every poem in my poetry book is free verse. But there are a couple rhymey poems. One of my favorite poems is actually a rhymey poem, but it's short, and it's a little story and like 8 lines. It's very nice. Laura doesn't know what to do. Criteria, where to sit. No one will let her near them. She's a new fish. See that? See that? Boop. Okay, new fish. I'm gonna highlight. I'm gonna bold that, and the reason is because I might want to play with that. I'll give myself my own Shawshank Redemption moment, where fishy, 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 new fish. Okay, the cellmate is in the cafeteria. This would be a new beat. All right, so let me explain what's going on here. The beat. A beat is something that I'm going to explore in its fullness. There should be sort of like a movement to it. And then you've probably heard me use the term new movement. So when you're writing prose or you create a new passage, whenever there's a new movement. And in this case, this beat would set up that. It would be the cafeteria, where she sat, etc., etc. This is a new movement because now the cellmate is going to interact with her and tells her to come over, changing the movement. This is going to dig into that moment. Laura is asked how she ended up here. So this is all part of this one big beat, which leads her to think about love interest. Do-do-do. All right. Where? What's going on? Did that work? Okay. All right. Do-do-do. Okay. Which leads her to think about and how he was nice. The food isn't really her style. All right. So this is actually, this digs into this beat. So they're connected. Okay. And now we got a new beat within this original beat. The food is really her, not her style. You know what? I think I'm actually going to make this its own new beat. See what I just did there? Remember, you have that freedom. If you make a choice and then you realize to yourself you have to adjust that choice, do it. Because that's what being a writer is. Writing is easy. Chris met Sarah. Anyone could write that. It's the questioning. Being a writer is about asking questions, changing things, breaking things, adjusting things. It is not about going, I came up with an idea, and that's the idea, and that is all it is. And if I adjust it, it means I'm not a good writer. That is not what being a writer is. Being a writer is breaking, changing, adjusting, asking questions. You're allowed to change ideas. In fact, if you do that more often, you'll be serving the benefit of the narrative and not necessarily serving the ego of the author. And one of those leads to really amazing experiences, while the other one sort of traps you in like, wow, this has to always be perfect. And then what do? Do you ever release it? Do you ever, creates headaches. I'll have a soda. Where's my soda? All right. The food is really while ordering it. Gets up in her face. All right. Boop. All right. Everyone back to this house. All right. There you go. That's actually pretty full. I think that creates its own thing. Yeah. All right. Honestly, looking at this, I bet you this is gonna be its own. This is gonna be its own chapter, and then this is probably gonna be its own chapter. I'm probably gonna get 2 chapters out of this. I'm not gonna adjust that now, but I feel it coming, just by looking at this alone. Besides, how many words is this? Yeah, 119, 190, 190. Right. Yeah, there's gonna be more than that. There's gonna be totally more than that. There's gonna be more than that. All right, so there we go. We did chapter 10. So let's move into chapter 11. Let's do it. All right. What we got here? It's all one big chapter. That's good. That's good. It's all one big chapter. Whoops. My fingers. All right, let's do this. Let's do this. All right. 1 second. I want to see something. Okay. All right. So some of you might be wondering, why is this there? This is where I would write the draft. It's because when I get into the first draft, I'm going to copy this file. I'm just going to duplicate this file. And then when I start writing, I'll basically erase this and I'll start building on this. So as I write this beat out, and if I feel it's complete, then I'll delete this beat, but then there'll be prose above it, and I just kind of build my chapters out that way. So as I'm going, I'm slowly deleting the 0 draft and whatever the case is. Anyway. All right, Laura is in her cell. The cell door is open, but she doesn't want to leave the cell. She's concerned that she's never going to get home again. To distract herself, her line of thinking goes from replaying the hijack in her head and what she could have done differently to her fantasy. Okay, so I'm going to write a note here. This is going to be influenced by the scene itself and transition into the thoughts, which then turns into the fantasy of her romance plot. All right, and then just so you understand why I'm writing that, is I'm trying to tell myself that I'm not going to make it's not going to be a chapter break or anything. Like, I don't have to be like, oh, we're going to be thinking about the hijack. So she's going to be like replaying the hijack in her head. All right. This is literally going to be, it's just going to flow into it. So she'll be in her cell. She'll be sitting with her cell. She has concerns about never getting home again. And then sort of like I do a transitional kind of like line, which might be like, she might talk about her ship or something. Right. So I could even write that. Might start out as her talking about her ship and not having it paid off. Then her father. And, no, wait. Might start off with her talking about her family. Yes. Which leads to her ship. And not having it paid off. All right. I think that'll be less of a note, and I think I'm just going to make that part of the... Let's just make that part of the thing. Let's just make that part of the thing. Boop. Okay. Or I should say... the memory with her. Okay. All right, there we go. So now we're creating a motive for the thought process, right? So sometimes you could just be like, she's having a memory of her father, but like, why is she having a memory of her father, right? So you always want to connect things too. Again, being a writer is about asking questions and having answers, and by the way, confidently and comfortably standing by those answers with the strength and willingness to adjust if needed. But anytime a character behaves a certain way, sometimes it's like, the curtains are blue. But other times you kind of want to understand their motivation. You want to know, well, why are they doing this? Why is this leading here? And sometimes if you don't know where to go, if you ask yourself and you start talking about the character, you'll start figuring out, oh, my character might do X, Y, Z. So you can also kind of, drive the narrative by asking questions too. All right, I'm actually going to make this a beat like this. All right. We get less silly than the others. Fantasies maybe have a bit more telling of her attraction to the love interest. All right. Because remember, like, every time she thinks of like the romance novel, it's always like silly or like it's over the top because she's a first time writer and she wants to be a romance novelist. So it's like it always has those like romancy, poorly accomplished tropes. But in this situation, it's going to be I'm adding a touch of seeding for why is she so trusting of the love interest, and in this case, she's having a fantasy. Right, of thinking of so she's like, oh, the hijack happened, and then she turns into a romance thing, and then it turns into maybe something a little bit more real for her, and so that's a nice little play on the situation. Have the love interest. Say things he didn't say on the ship, but then shoot the other gang members and grab her. Kiss her. Alright. So again, that would be the fantasy playing out. Alright, the cellmate. Cellmate enters the cell. That she should get some movement going or the cell will drive her nuts. It's too dangerous out there. So what? Cafeteria. Did I spell that terribly wrong? Yeah. Alright. Okay. Alright, I'm just reading over what happened. Alright, so you might be saying, but Thomas, what is plot point 11? This is known as the fun and games section. This is where the characters get to sort of take a break and we get to learn a little bit about them. So how does this chapter accomplish that plot point? Well, Laura isn't necessarily in a direct conflict of urgency or high stakes. We understand she's in a high stakes area, prison. There is trouble around the corner, but she's isolating herself. And in that isolation, we are learning a little bit more about her as a character. We're understanding that she does have some sort of interest for the love interest, but we're also leaning into the romance novel element. But more importantly, we're also talking about a family. So those stories are probably going to expose a little bit more about her connection with her family, which therefore, fun and games, your plot point 11 or PP11 is designed to give us a greater understanding of the characters, their motivations, and a little bit more background. That's why it's the fun and games. Usually if you watch a movie, this is the campfire. If you read a book and it's fantasy, this is usually they're around a campsite, right? Not always. Sometimes they're in a tavern. Sometimes whatever. They're just traveling. It's low stakes of Act 2. However, in a film, it's usually quicker. It's like boom. So in Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, spoiler alert, they're in Tortuga. All right, Tortuga. And in Tortuga, Jack is walking around and a girl comes up to him and slaps him. And he's like, I don't think I deserve that one. And then he sees another girl and she slaps his face. Like, I don't think I deserve that one either. And then they find, what's his face? Gibbs, Mr. Gibbs. And, we learn a little bit more that Jack Sparrow has a connection directly to the Pearl, and that he knows exactly who Bootstrap's Bill is and the connection to William Turner, and he's putting the things together, and that he knows Barbossa. And so you're learning all this background information through the scheming and planning and the manipulation of the situation, and you also learn that Sparrow knows Gibbs. Gibbs was introduced in the prologue of the movie, and he was on the ship with Elizabeth Turner the day that William Turner was brought aboard. So that's an example of fun and games. It's we get to sort of kind of sit with the characters a little bit. What's up, bro? Greetings, Thomas and Room. A bit late. Been working, been listening, more than watching. Hey, I just appreciate the love, my friend. The love. All right, let's keep it going. I think we're almost done with the plot point 11. So, yeah, so it's low stakes. You usually don't want the characters involved in a high stakes situation, even though this is technically the conflict of section 4, because remember, every section has a beginning, middle, and end. So the first plot point sets up the context, which we did with the prison in chapter 10 and her situation. The second plot point usually is the problem or conflict. So in this situation, it's her yearning. She's yearning for home. Where is home? How is she going to get home? She's probably never going to get home, she's thinking. So that becomes the plot. And then the resolution is the potential for solution. And if you don't... I should say... Well, we'll get to it. So in plot point 12, that's going to be the resolution, which will be the juxtaposition. But more importantly, uh, if we go back to the Black Pearl, the problem or conflict of Section 4, plot point 11, would be that Sparrow is coming up with a plan, and they need a crew, right? He goes, well, what do you need, right? And he's like, I need a crew. I need men I need men willing to do something stupid. So they're creating the problem. They're like, oh, we got to find a solution to this. And do they find the solution in the next plot point? Yes, in the movie they find not only do they find a crew. That's where they have the guy with the parrot. Do you speak for so and so? And he's like, he has no tongue, sir. Right? So there's still a quote unquote problem or conflict that needs to be solved in plot point 11. Okay, anyway. All right, let's see. I feel like this one's done. I don't feel like I need to add a lot more to this. 397. All right. I'm just looking for something from the old thing. From the old information. By the way, sometimes this is true. By the way, sometimes 293. Here's an example. 293. Sometimes. That was the original number count for the extended draft. Sometimes the extended draft isn't going to necessarily, as you can see, isn't going to necessarily be much bigger in the zero draft, just because like the beats are there and it just makes sense. So like you don't really have to go too deep into it, but you can. And this is the other thing. Like I also know that when I get to the last chapter, I'm technically going to go back through and read and start taking notes. And those notes are going to lead to me adjusting things, right? So I might be expanding on the zero drafts a little bit more. So I don't just jump right to the... because as you can see, the next step after I do the 27... After I get through all the chapters, or the plot points, I should say, I'm going to organize plot points and elements, right? And that's me reading through it and taking notes. And I'm going to show you how I take notes on chapters and everything like that. And then I take those notes and I adjust what I found into the extended draft. So, or I should say the zero draft. So it's not necessarily that I'm writing a first draft, because I'm still not doing prose. It's just that I'm taking what was in the extended draft, my notes, and anything that I have to add, and I pop it there. And then that's when I would actually send it to my alpha readers when I feel it's more cohesive. And then based on their notes, I would do one more revise the outline, based on if I need to, which would also include the adjusting what I found. And then I go, all right, let me write the prose out. So it is a process. Let's do this. But let's get to 12. All right. Ooh, okay. All right, so this is definitely going to have a hard chapter break. Let's get that going. All right. Might as well just get that in place. Okay. Let me do this. All right. So let's go through and see how we can build on this. All right. Laura is walking around the cell area filled with people. All right. She's taking note of them, etc. All right. She notices person who gave her trouble in the cafeteria, and they're staring right back at her. Laura tries to avoid. Actually, yeah, let me do this. Tries to avoid them moving away and trying to get in a cell, but the person catches up to Laura, and they get into a fight. Yeah. Oh, does it keep stopping? Is it ads or something like that? You can just skip the ad. You just hit the skip-a-dippity-doo-dah-day. Skip that ad. It's okay. If you don't have to watch the ad. You just boop. We do that so I can keep the lights on. All right. Laura tries to avoid the glare, moving away and trying to make it up. Oh yeah, we get to make a game. We'll worry about that later. Making it up for this world, something people would be crouched over or leaning down in a hard surface. Okay. The screen is black when it does that. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know why it's doing that. That's weird. My indicators show, because I have the screen up too to make sure that it's all playing right. I don't know what it is. Thanks for telling me, Hannah Hart. If anyone else is having that issue, let me know in the comments. Alright, gets up slowly and tries to leave again, but now the people she fell over are up and causing an issue. Laura gets pushed around and finally lands in the hands of the person who started it, causing a big fight, and the cell block explodes into violence. Alright. Okay. AFK. I don't know what that means, Roo. I don't know what that means. All right. Knocking everyone out. Oh, look, an M dash. Must be AI Thomas. Could just do this. Okay, so I added a little bit more conflict. All right, that's pretty good. By the way, if anyone's wondering, again, this is the protagonist compares their current world to how things were at the beginning, and it basically is the old juxtaposition. They don't have to physically be talking. Tom is AI. Tom is AI. They don't have to physically be talking about the difference in the world. It's just a representation of a changed world. So Laura Olivia's as a character is completely out of her old juxtaposition in the sense that she has no control, no freedom. She's in a violent and aggressive world where at the beginning of the story, she's like has a happy family. They're laughing. They're talking about romance novels. She gets along with the guy, the person who runs the landing docks and everything. You know, like everybody knows her. It's all like, yay. And here it's just complete chaos and violence, and this is not who she is, nor is it the world she should be in. So you can show the old juxtaposition. You don't have to just have characters talking about it. All right, let's see. 211. 211. Oh, we have two. All right, let's do this. What was this? Cell block fantasy. Big fight. Tossed in a cell. Oh, yeah. All right. Okay. Solitary confinement. All right, there we go. All right, and a couple things real quick. This is going to be 144 words. And then the second thing is going to be 189 words. Not bad, not bad. Okay. All right, let's bring that up a little bit. All right. All right. And we are here. It just did it again. I just got out of the video and clicked right back. Hannah, it's playing ads. It plays an ad, and sometimes the ad might just be a blank screen, whatever the case is. You should see a skip option on the ad. You just hit the skip option, and you should be good. That's all that's happening. Is you're seeing ads. That's all. All right. Maybe I don't have good. I have to. I guess I have to manually set it so it doesn't keep playing ads. So I'll take care of that for next week. I'll make sure it doesn't do that, or at least I'll try to make sure it doesn't do that. Judging the thing. Where are we? Oh, all right. We on 11. What was the number? Does anyone remember the number? Here we go. All right. 211. 211. There it goes. 211. Boom. All right. Can't believe we're on 12 already. I don't have ads, Afghani. Well, that's good. I don't see any ads midstream either. All right, well that's good. That's good. So, I think when you, I don't know how it works. I'm not an expert on that, and I'm the first one to say I don't know something. So for those who are not getting the ads, that's good. For those who are getting the ads, feel free to just skip the ads. I assure you, but they do pay the bills. All right, so we're almost at an hour. You know what? Let's end here. I'm going to end here. Excuse me. Sorry about that. All right, there you go. All right, we did really well, though. We did really well. Look at that. We got to chapter 12. We're almost to the middle of Act 2. We're flying by this. Nor I, says the M. I wonder why they don't do that. I don't know. All right. Let's do it. Okay, everyone. This is where I give the floor to if you have questions about your writing, your process. I'm a developmental editor and a writing teacher, so if you have questions, feel free to ask. It's like getting free advice from a person in the field. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have about your own writing. If you have questions about what I did today, if you have questions about the 27 plot point alpha, etc., etc., etc. I don't have a poll this week, and I apologize for that. I was running a little late. But next time. Well, everyone's thinking of some words. I'm going to go through the whole thing. I got to do the kit and caboodle. I got to do the spiel. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe and hit the like button. It's very, I'd be very grateful for the continued love. The likes help, the subscribes help, and also the sharing of the video absolutely helps. Oh, we got some questions. Yeah. Act 3. Can MC1 find out his arc ending in P26 and then have his subplot ending? All right. Okay. If I answer this through a misunderstanding, please just correct me and I'll adjust. So let's do this. Real unforgivable. Sorry. All right, so to answer your question, the main plot must end in the 27th plot point. Okay, the main plot, okay, is the only reason the narrative exists. So whatever the main plot is, whether it's the main act or it's like the earth is dying and there are people trying to stop the earth from dying, the main act must conclude the narrative. Subplots can also be in the conclusion. However, it's best to try to get those subplots, as many as possible, sort of arranged and put together before you get to plot point 25. So in plot point 24, you should have a majority of the subplots sort of resolved. They don't all have to be, because again, you could break the rules. But you want the main plot and main act to find its way to the end of the book. Otherwise, you might be writing the wrong story, because if you want to end it with somebody else's if you want to end it with a specific subplot, that subplot might actually be the main plot. Otherwise, However, that doesn't mean in an epilogue, if you have an epilogue, you can't have sort of a conclusion to something as an aside to set up something later. But as far as the full narrative goes, you have to have the main narrative conclude at the end of the book. It'd be like if Superman was fighting Lex Luthor the whole movie, and then he beats Lex Luthor sort of like at the beginning of, like, if he beats him in like plot point 24, or even in this case plot point 26, and then plot point 27 is really about him finding I don't know. Oh, him winning the Pulitzer prize, the Pulitzer for writing an article as Clark Kent. Now, if that article is directly connected to the battle he had with Lex Luthor, then that is technically still part of the main narrative. All right. I vote C. I don't remember what the vote was for. You're all making... Oh, that's funny. All right. Because his main thing he's been trying to do should end, but there's been something simmering. Back and front. Welcome back, Rue. Yes, I'm wondering that. His subplot needs to be last. If his subplot needs to be last, as in you're going to resolve everything with the subplot, it has to be directly connected to the main narrative. If it is sort of distinctly its own thing, then you might have an issue. Like I said, if like Clark Kent writes an article and wins like the Pulitzer for it because he wrote an article about Superman defeating Lex Luthor, that would connect to the main narrative, but it would also sort of be its own subplot that he's trying to win the Pulitzer. If your subplot needs to be, but again, I don't understand the context just by using the word subplot. And just as a reference, everyone should have this back structure. Oh, God. Yeah. All right. Everyone should have one of these. Not that I have a link for it. But it's the greatest thing ever. I guess, what might be helpful? And you could do this, Flowers, because you got my email, or you could just message me on Facebook like you do. What is... if you could, in a sentence or two, explain to me what the main plot is that's ending in 26, and what is the subplot that's ending in 27, and I could probably give you a better, more clear answer. Clark Kent is he might be, but he's really good at football. Oh, poo, 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 poo. Yeah, it happens. Bloop your back, bloop your back. You got to bloop your back, and you got to bloop the beard and bloop the like button if you haven't done so already. Yeah. Just send me just one or two sentences for what the conclusion of the main narrative in your mind is, and then what the conclusion of the subplot in your mind is, and I could give you a more. Because again, if you're using the word subplot and main plot, well, the main plot is the thing that drives the story. It's the whole reason the narrative exists. But your subplot might be directly related to your narrative, so it might qualify and be fine. Because again, you want a full cohesive narrative. People want there's What's the movie? Tombstone. Tombstone. If anyone's ever seen Tombstone with Val Kilmer and Kurt Russell and all that, there's like an ending to that movie, and then there's like an ending to that movie. And in that case, to sort of use Flowers' question, in Tombstone, the main narrative is about these brothers and the relationship between Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer, et cetera, right? It's called Tombstone. The OK Corral kind of just happens in the middle, and then it's all about getting the cowboys, right? You know, that's what they were called, cowboys. So once that's done, right, there's still more movie. Kurt Russell still ends up saying goodbye to his friend, and then he ends up catching back up with the girl of his dreams, and whatever the case is. Originally, the movie ended. It ended with them basically killing all the cowboys, right? And then the screenings were like showing bad reviews, even though it's such a great movie, right? Because there was no finality to the main narrative. We didn't see what happened to Kurt Russell as a character, and what's his connection, him and his relationship with Val Kilmer's, Doc Holliday. So that's the power of concluding the main narrative, is that they had to add those extra scenes where he's in the snow with the girl, and he's like, I'm broke, I have no money, I did all these things. And she's like, that's all right, my family is wealthy. And then he says goodbye, before that, he says goodbye to Val Kilmer, and we see Doc Holliday, spoiler, maybe or maybe not die. But the point is, those two things are still connected to the main narrative, which is technically Kurt Russell's connection to his life with these characters. That's the brilliance of it. It wasn't like a get the sword of bloop bloop kind of narrative. Tombstone is not a get the sword of bloop bloop. So it has that nice little kind of touch to it. How would I get your template on my laptop? I've tried to go to the website for them yesterday, but it didn't work. I sent you. I didn't send you. I posted the link to the thing, but all you gotta do is go here. You click on this, and then you're gonna go to the files you want, and then there are like the three little dots in the right hand corner of each file, and you're basically going to click it, and then there's an option to download it, and if you download it, you'll be able to get it. So and this link, by the way, for anyone watching, it's on every video. It's either in the description or it's in the comment section. It's on both areas, but also on the homepage of the YouTube channel, there's a link under all the extended links and stuff like that. And it's all available. You don't have to sign up for anything. You don't have to pay for anything. You just go there, and there's tons of free downloadable stuff, from templates to I break down 27 plot point examples. There's genre beats. There's everything and anything you could think of. I have it there available for everybody. All right. With that said, if you haven't done so already, remember you could always check me out at makearightleftheere.com. Do you have what it takes to make a right left here, or do you? Do you, punk? And there you could find out where I am doing stuff. So if I'm speaking, if I'm doing a book signing, if I'm doing something, but also you could see my other available books and books that are in process. You could see where I am in the writing process. I'm adding new covers every day to the books. I'm adding new information, and my news is always updating on the homepage once a week at minimum. Other than that, here's a question for you. What are you hoping? This was the poll I wanted to do, but I didn't get a chance to put it in. What are you hoping to learn most from this series? You could just let me know in the comments below. What are you hoping to learn most from this series? And I think that would be a good conversational starter. We'll get that going. Well, that is in the talks. So if you're new here and you haven't heard, I have a book. It's available, Breaking Down Success. It's for people within the entertainment industry. So if you're a writer, a novelist, an author, a screenwriter, if you're an actor, a musician, whatever the case, if you're a comedian, this book is available. This is the first book in 5 books. All 5 books are done, but I am releasing them every 6 months, or we'll see, maybe every 3 months. We'll see how that goes. But this book is the foundational element of it. It basically introduces the series, and it gives you a lot of helpful stuff to get started. It sets the tone for everything that's to come, but it also gives you really helpful and useful things you should do to build your foundation, to help with time management, money management, people management, and a bunch of other stuff that is in that book. So I'm really proud of it. Like I said, I got it into a library. The library really loved it. And I'm talking to Barnes and Noble. So we'll see what happens. But currently, you could just go to makearightleftheare.com or Amazon and find it. I guess that's it. That's it. Anything else? No thoughts? No memories? What do we got here? Hoping to learn how to write my story correctly. I love that you say that, Ro, because I kind of want to clarify what correctly would even mean, right? Correctly, there are so many rules to writing, and all of them are optional. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's art. It's like telling someone, hey, you painted that wrong. And then Picasso's like, what do you mean I painted it wrong? And they're like, well, the faces are weird. And they're like, get out of here. Or if they said that Jackson Pollock, who I also don't think is a great artist, but they're like, hey, it's just dots and drippage. And, at my age, drippage is part of the whole thing. So I don't think correctly is the right word per se. But there is, I do deeply believe there are good stories and there are bad stories. But I also believe the other side of it. There is what I like and what I don't like. And I don't think those connect. Because you can write a story really well, and you could do it good, and you could use all the good writing techniques, and someone could just be like, I don't like this story. And they're not wrong. They could be like, this is a bad story. I just don't like it. It's terrible. And they are right for them. It's their perspective. It's the same thing with music. One of the things that I learned in the music industry, there is good writing. Good writing is that, it has a verse, a chorus, a bridge, 2 choruses out, right? That, that's good structure, right? But you could also play with that. You could start off with a chorus, okay? And then you could do a verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus, or you could do just the bridge, chorus, right? You can still play with the rules. But at the end of the day, what you're looking for is, like, in good songwriting, it's pattern interrupts. So if you ever listen to, like, you might not like Bon Jovi, but here's an example. The chorus, living on a prayer, oh, right? And then it stops. Boom. So it goes from that big crescendo, that big loudness, right? And then it just goes back to that driving bass. That's a pattern interrupt. In writing, the same thing is part of the system. If it's just pure exposition dump, that's like us getting just a lot of right? And it's just hitting us and there's no resolve, right? And there's no getting a basis for context. And that's the same thing with writing. So good writing must have context. It must challenge that context. It must resolve that context. But the words you use and, like, the way you use them and all the other stuff that makes it your voice and your creative adventure, that's all subjective, So if you're setting something up, you're challenging it and you're resolving it, that's technically a correct story, but it doesn't mean it is a good story, et cetera, et cetera. But you also need things like, you need plot forward, you need world building, you need character development. That would be correct writing. But the way you do it is a whole other, it's a whole other thing. To be focused, not meandering, lost in the woods. Yeah, I'm perfect. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, good writing is focused writing. Everything has value and purpose. When I talk about logical narrative movement in writing, when it talks about sentence construction, stuff like that, like there's elements within a sentence that connect to the next element, but you're also adding so you can move the plot forward in that sentence. It doesn't meander because you're building on something, But, you could say to yourself, did I just do 5 sentences in a row that are describing the tree? And if so, did I change anything about it? Did I add an element of process for characters? Did I world build? Did I move plot forward? Or is it just me going into the greater detail of this tree? And if the answer is yes, you're just going into greater detail of that tree, you could take a few lines out. But again, it is subject. Like, we can all say, well, there's a large group of people that love Lord of the Rings. You can't dispute that, right? Because the movies made money, people talk about it, people buy the books. Okay, it's something that happens. I personally do not enjoy the books. I used to when I was a kid. But the more I started understanding writing, it's the same thing with Star Wars. I don't enjoy Star Wars, but I enjoy the Lord of the Rings world. I love the truth of those characters, just like I love the truth of the characters of the Star Wars world. But as I became more aware of writing and character and story and development, and like the developmental editing part of my life kind of made watching things unbearable sometimes. Not because I think it's bad. It's just I'm seeing all the plot holes, or I'm calling it out. I'm like, oh, that's the killer. And it's like the first scene of a thriller. And, how do you know that? And I was like, well, because they did A, B, and C. And it is good writing. It is correct. And because it's so correct, I saw it. So, like, there are so many things involved with that. I think I'm meandering right now. But anyway, all right. What we got? At my level of expertise, I must always be looking over my shoulder for the, the literary essays. I think if you just write and just let it happen, you'll eventually start understanding things. Like, when I started playing music, it wasn't, so in music, like if you, like there's a C chord, a D chord, an A chord, an E chord, right? E minor or whatever, right? You could even have like D sus, C, sharp 9. And like when I was first learning it, my hands looked like this. It would be like C, and then I'd be like G, strum, 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 stop, D, strum, strum. And then as you do it more and more, it's C, C, D, G, G, D, D, right? So writing's the same way. The more you write, the more you fail, the more you'll get better. And honestly, I think the real secret to getting better is when you write, doing the work to study it, to look at it, to break it apart, to be a critic, not of judgment like I'm a bad writer, I can't write. Not to do that, but to critique it in the sense of doing the work. Like, how does this sentence connect to the next sentence? How does this pro connect to the next prose? How does am I setting up this chapter and or scene? Am I setting up the scene? Is there a problem or conflict within the scene? Is there a resolution to this scene, but it still moves the plot forward? You should be looking at those things. And it's that part of writing that'll actually help you become a better, stronger writer. Because you could write pretty prose and still be doing nothing. And it's something, Yeah. One might say that. Two people might say that. It never gets, Yeah. All right. Boo! What do we got here? I just downloaded your files. Excellent. Hannah. Thank you. I wonder how far back some people are. Yes, you're welcome, Flowers. You are welcome. You're welcome. All right, everyone. Today I'm not going to haunt you with a shot of Man of War, but I know you all wanted it. Could you do a video on the 15 story beats as a writing lesson as well? I could. I'm not well versed in the 15 story. I'm saving you all today, ladies. Uh, I'm not super well versed in it, but I do understand it, and I have researched it in a way that it is something that exists. I can do that. To honestly though, you'll probably benefit more from me talking about the 27 plot point outline. I could talk about the hero's journey as probably as profoundly as the 27 plot point outline, but at the end of the day, I'm probably going to be able to articulate narrative through those beats than I would the 15 story beats. But I'll start putting something together, and if I feel comfortable with it and I think it'll be helpful, I will maybe I'll do one of those on a Saturday, and I'll put that. Let me put that into my sheet. Let's see. Oh, that reminds me. I got to tell you what the schedules are. Let's see. Outline. Let's see, where are my live videos, my live lessons? There we go. All right, we have 15 beat story outline structure. All right, there we go. You are in like Flynn. I have added that to the story. All right, let's talk about what's coming up. So this Wednesday, all right, apparently I'm eating up this entire month. Year. Jesus. All right. This Wednesday, everyone, the video that's coming out. Ooh! This video will be outlining, it'll go over plot point 1, what is the ordinary world. So the video will specifically be about the first plot point. So that should be fun. This Friday will be the last video in the Creating a Language series. So that's that with that. And then I have to make some more. And then next Saturday, we'll go back into what is writing. And we're going to talk about basically therefore and but, using the formula to create cause and effect. And of course, Sunday will be video 30 of Write a Book with Me. So that should be fun. I can't believe this year is almost over. This is crazy. Wow. I can't believe it. So weird. Time just flies. Am I right? Or am I thinking too deep into that? I think I'm thinking, all right. Anyway, much love to everyone. All right. It's 3:30. I'm going to need to eat something. And they really do. They just fly by. The older we get. When I was in school, I was like, is class going to end? And now I'm old. I'm like, what do you mean school's over? Like when people, I'm like, where are the buses outside? And people are like, school's over. I'm like, already? Didn't it just start? Anyway. All right, that's it. We're done. We got to go. To everybody out there, much love, as always. By the way, on Wednesdays and Fridays, I do watch the premiere videos, so you can chit and chat with me in real time in the comments. More importantly, I will see you every weekend, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Saturdays are educational and or some business. And Sundays are always going to be the Write a Book with Me. Anyway, thank you so much for all the support and the love. I will see you next time. I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and as always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.